When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Welcome to a best of 2025 episode of the Coach and Coordinator podcast. This episode is presented by Modern Football Technology. As coaches move from the end of one season into the offseason, the questions we're trying to answer get sharper. What stays, what gets cut, and what actually fits the players we're going to line up with next season. In this episode, I'm joined by AJ Smith, former UFL and XFL offensive coordinator, to walk through how he approaches that exact process. AJ shares how he studies the game across levels, evaluates personnel honestly, and narrows an offense down to what can be executed at a high level. We talk about cutting the playbook, preserving continuity without being rigid, and why rhythm and timing matter more than volume. We also get into how analytics used correctly can help coaches gain clarity in quarterback evaluation and offensive decision-making without adding unnecessary work. In addition to this episode, we also built a Coach and Coordinator AI companion specifically around AJ Smith's 7 conversations with us. This tool is trained only on AJ's episode transcripts and is designed to help coaches apply his offensive decision-making frameworks, simplification filters, execution standards, and analytics-informed thinking strictly with what AJ has actually shared. It's not a playbook, and it doesn't introduce new ideas. It's a way to think more clearly through the same lens you'll hear in this conversation. Let's get into the conversation.
Just because you know it all doesn't mean you should run it all. And certain plays work better with better players. You start to look at that, and then you come up with a training camp idea. And the whole goal of training camp is to take your playbook with your 4-day, 3-day install, however you have it laid out. These are what we're putting in. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Where we got it wrong? Let's cut that play. And the whole goal is to cut your training book playbook in half.
In this episode of the Coach and Coordinator podcast, AJ Smith, the offensive coordinator of the San Antonio Brahmas, discusses the transition from one football season to the next. He emphasizes the importance of analyzing data from the previous season, evaluating roster changes, and adjusting the playbook. The conversation also touches on the impact of the transfer portal in college football, the significance of finding the right fit between players and plays, and the role of analytics in player development. You've heard me talk about Modern Football Technology often on this podcast. I really believe in what they do, and there's some great things they have coming out here, like their quarterback grading module. That's something that will be available soon. Make sure you go to modernfootballtechnology.com to check out what they do and to sign up for a demo. Welcome to another episode of the Coach and Coordinator podcast. And today we're going to take a look at what we do with all the information we have about ourselves, some about our opponents too, as we leave a season and start preparing for the next one. And joining me to discuss that is the offensive coordinator of the San Antonio Brahmas, AJ Smith. AJ, always great to have you here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So AJ, this is kind of amplified for you, magnified for you, I guess, the idea of how much things change over the course of one season to the next, we're all faced with some kind of turnover. Our team is going to be a little bit different than next year. And even if we have the opportunity with recruiting or at the professional level with contracts, there's always different dynamics to the team. And so you're going to tweak things and you're going to build it differently. And a lot of it, though, starts with all this data we leave the season with, our self-scouts, everything that we've done before. So we'd just love to pick your brain about your approach to this as you finish one season and you start heading into the next and what you're going to work on for that.
Yeah, I think first an off-season study is just looking at every single schematic thing you can find that other teams are doing. And I'm blessed with the fact that we play spring football when no one else is playing football. Then in the fall, I get to watch everything. I mean, Saturday and Sunday, really the only 2 days I work, but they're 9-hour work days each day, and I don't miss a single deal. And then with PFF, you can immediately watch all 22 within a few hours. And so where typically you're game planning or possibly playing games during that time and then have to go game plan, I'm getting all that information. And so then we're jotting down everything we love, and that's kind of phase one. And so then phase two is getting our roster for the coming season. And so every roster you get is in spring football is always going to be a little bit different. You'll get some retention. I think now that we're entering, year three, if you start with the 2023 XFL, you're starting to get some veterans on a team that's going to be there for the third year with you. Not a whole lot like you would in college level or pro ball, but some. And then you're seeing the talent you have there, and then start to form what you think should be your playbook. And something I say is just because you know it all doesn't mean you should run it all. And certain plays work better with better players. And so you start to look at that, and then you come up with a training camp idea. And the whole goal of training camp is to take your playbook with your 4-day, 3-day install, however you have it laid out. These are what we're putting in. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Where we got it wrong, let's cut that play. And the whole goal is to cut your training book playbook in half. And then, for us, it's 15 practices. And then we're on TV getting ridiculed for our coaching. But just 15 practices. So
yeah,
not a whole lot of time.
Yeah. Well, as you were talking, I guess it kind of dawned on me that, college is probably getting closer to what you have now with the turnover that they see. The transfer portal and guys, programs who live there, and they're going to have, the roster you might be watching here this week with teams in the semifinal could be completely different next year. The idea of recruit and develop is that's not what everybody is necessarily doing anymore. I'm not saying that they're not developing guys, but finding guys who are game ready right now and can be plug and play, that's where things are. So I think some of the thoughts behind this probably are more relevant to what we see going on in college football today.
100%. Have this conversation all the time about how what we're doing merits what the college game is right now with the transfer portal. And I'll go ahead and make a prediction, because we can't just say, hey, there's no development going on in college football. There's some, and some schools still prioritize that. And it's real easy to look at. Look at all the academy schools. And there's still going to be 3, 4, 5-year players that have been running that option, have been running their defense for several years, very, very sound. And then you're going to go up against guys that are getting together for the first time. And I think over there, they're going to have to get really basic with their offense. And there's going to be a standard air raid passing game that if I go to Clemson or Florida State or LSU, everyone kind of knows what 95 is. I'll ran that over there. Everyone's going to know their version of the mesh with the sit over the top and the wheel. Okay, yeah, the NCAA mesh. Yeah, we ran that there. And so everybody's going to be running the same stuff, and there's 1 year of chemistry of doing that. So my prediction, within the next 4 years, an academy school will win a playoff game. They're going to get in, they're going to be one of the 12, and they're going to kick someone's butt, which they typically do and it's all it's going to be is out executing, because the argument going on that I'm laughing about with the SEC is, well, look at our players getting drafted. That has a lot of merit as far as like your rosters, you could argue, are better or whatnot. But man, no roster's ever won a game. Execution is always won a game. So just because you have the best roster doesn't mean they can go out there and stop that option or stop a team that's been together for 5 years, 4 or 5 years, compared to an all-star roster that's doesn't have that chemistry. And a lot of times speed and strength will still win regardless of how long they've been together. But I'm predicting academy school between Navy, Army, between one of those two, they're gonna win a game.
Yeah, I could see it. I think, you look at what's happened. I think post-pandemic, those schools hurt a little bit because rosters were older for the most part, right? Like there were no COVID years for academy guys. Those guys are leaving in 4 years, right? There's no medicals. There's no red shirts. They leave in 4 years. And so for a couple years, I think you saw the older players who have been around longer took it to the academies a little bit. But then you look at this year and now they've had time to develop those guys. Army and Navy were outstanding this year. Air Force had a drop off. They were up the previous year, but I could see exactly what you say because as you mentioned, it is execution. This game is about execution. And you said something a little way back I would love to dig into here, that all plays are great, but they're not great for all players, right? And so the challenge is, as we sit down at this time of the year, what do we have coming up? And some of it is, can we project this guy, his growth and development here over the next 8 or 7 or 8 months here till we get to game day? What are going to be the plays that fit best for him? And then obviously it's not just about him, it's all the different puzzle pieces. So you got to mesh all these things together. And I think as we've been in the game longer, we start to see how the pieces fit a little bit better. We start to understand this guy's going to fit good for this, and here's the pieces around him. But, for a coach who's sitting down and looking at that, what's the filter for that? How are you looking at it from, here's what this guy can do really well, here's where he fits in, but then having to think about the 5 other guys who are the skill players and the guys up front too, because I think that matters a lot as well.
Yeah. The two things we look at the most to decide where to go from here as far as roster evaluation, I think that the two biggest things that can just change your entire offense is arm strength at quarterback and speed at receiver. And I think the difference between to getting the titles of offense, air raid and run and shoot, I think you can run the air raid with any roster. Look at Lavelle Edwards. That was 21 personnel. Mm-hmm. That was tight ends and 2 running backs. And then, it evolved to 4 wide receivers. And now a lot of people are running out of 11 personnel. And as long as your quarterback could make an accurate throw, you can run. You can run the system. I've come to the realization that with the run and shoot, it may have been sold that you can run this with any roster. You can find guys down the hall or whatnot. That offense is not the same if you don't have a gunslinger back there that can stretch it 44 to 46 with a vertical stretch, and or if you don't got the 4-4 kid, 4 or 5 kid that can blow the top off the coverage. A choice route is absolutely dreadful to watch when the kid's 4. It just is. But when he has speed and he can win with speed, it's one of the greatest offenses ever, especially, with, and so just look, what the offenses that were successful back in the day had what I just described, Warren Moon, big time laser speed with, Drew Hill and Ernest Givens and those guys. And then you look at fast forward to what we're doing in 2020 with that same similar offense, PJ Walker. And then we had guys that were stupid fast like Khalil Lewis. And then, same thing with our 2023 teams with the Dragons and Roughnecks, everything I just described. We had John Trey Kirkland, they had Josh Gordon and those guys and 2 quarterbacks that could sling it. Yeah, we're going to run our offense. Now, when you don't have that, there is a system that fits every personnel. And it's what, Howell and Leach and Lavelle all put together.
Yeah, I think as you're building a system, it is hard when you have no talent, and obviously component-wise, those 2 guys, I think, make a difference really in any offense you put them in. I mean, if you had a fast guy to take the top off and a guy who could throw it, like you said, 44 to 46, they could run the wing T. They're still going to be successful because just those 2 components make things happen. But there is that idea of you want continuity. You don't want to be teaching a new system every year. I think that's what's been great about just watching how air raid evolves to different type of personnel. Like, when Mike took over at Mississippi State, he had a slew of tight ends. Well, those guys were involved. They just didn't go sit on the bench because Mike wanted to run 10. Those were guys he had in there. It did evolve, to one way or the other. And I think that when you can look at, personnel wise, offense is going to be a continuum of, I'm over here with, 23, and I'm over here with empty. And then we're all these things in between. I mean, you're going to find your sweet spot in there somewhere. You're probably, unless you have incredible people at both ends of that roster, then you might have a ton of personnel groups. But for the most part, you're going to be somewhere along that continuum, and then have to build it within your concepts from there. You don't want to have to get to this part of the year and say, well, I don't have these guys this year who I had in the air raid last year. We're going wing T. Because anytime you do that, anytime you flip a system, you make everybody a freshman again. Everybody's new in your program. You don't want to do that either.
And so for us, even though we may change some schematic things out and major in the other, and I think I've said this on the show and other things, if we put something in, we're taking something out. So we still, through practice, are hitting whatever we decide to run. We're still getting high reps at it. And the philosophy for us doesn't change. We're still going to be passed to set up the run. Our run game really never changes. And we're going to try to be, a one-back team. And I think this year was the first year I really branched out from what we've always done, because we wanted Cody Latimer, who was a tight end. And then we got another tight end, so we'd have two and not just have one. And so we ran a lot more 11 personnel, and that really changed schematics as far as the playbook. And we took certain plays out. Like, it was the first year we didn't run the old X and Z choice because we rather had 90. And to me, it was kind of similar. And so let's do that, because now we're going to get that big tight end with size and speed getting across. But we repped it and took something out. And nothing changed as far as we're still going to throw it 30, 40 times a game, which is a lot at our level because you have a running clock. And we're going to pass to set up the run. And so as long as your infrastructure stays the same, you're not running it, you're not adding, you're subtracting as you add, and you stay within the principles,
This episode is brought to you by Modern Football Technology. As coaches, we collect a lot of information, film, grades, tendencies, but the challenge is turning that information into something that actually helps us get better. Modern Football Technology is built to do exactly that. Their tools help you evaluate quarterback play, track decision-making, timing, and execution, and turn film into clear, usable feedback without adding hours to your day. If you're heading into the offseason trying to make better personnel decisions, streamline your evaluation process, or bring more clarity to how you teach, Modern Football Technology is worth a look. The link is in the show notes. So you mentioned the goal of training camp being to cut that playbook in half. Would love to just hear your thought process and how you start to see things of that's out. We're going to focus more on this. And here's the sweet spot of our offense where we're really going to run a lot of our stuff.
I think we really learned that from June at SMU. Whether it was off season, during camp, at some point we would have all our passing concepts, and when we would really look at it, look what was completing high, yards per completion, even in practice or spring football training. And then we'd always go, is this concept too similar to this one? Does this attack the same hook defender? Does this attack the same? Do we need both? Because if it's attacking the same thing and it looks similar, you'd rather call one play than two, because then you're going to get twice as many reps and recognition and hearing that. And so, that's exactly what we do. And then now there's so much technology with XOs and just the PFF, and now we've partnered with Modern Football, and they have a lot of analytic tools that not only just for scheme, but for players, that fit that scheme. So if we're running a scheme and one quarterback, when we run 4 verticals, is, we're looking at what he's doing, and his balls are being completed at 20% and the other ones at 70%. Was it really the scheme, or is it who's in? So we take it another step past that to see, is it a certain player not making this go? Because it may not be the play if it's switched out and it's super explosive. Our whole goal is to have concepts outside a quick game that have potential for explosives at any time. This could be a 20-yard explosive. And the ones that can do that, we want to major in. And, again, it's all analytics as you break it down and see what's best.
Yeah, the analytics, I think, and the better you can understand those things, help you get to that point where you're able to narrow down the playbook and you're able to see what your guys can really do. And I think also, the tool used correctly becomes a development tool. Hey, we're not hitting this particular route, or the ball is always behind on this particular throw. Why? And now you can start solving for those problems. And that's what I see, the advantage being for guys who do use technology. And, you mentioned modern football technology, and been able to sit down with you and go through with them a little bit of the product development and what should, this tool look like. And in particular, we're talking about their quarterback grading tool that really, I think, one, it becomes a time saver. We've all been through those drills of trying to chart as much as we can on a quarterback and get that data. So as we go through and we're trying to figure out, if we're in a quarterback duel, who is the starter, and to make that choice correctly, and being able to really see who's really operating within the offense. That's, I think, what having good data and then a way to make something of it is going to speed up that process for you. It's going to make it clear. And at the end of the day, if technology is just adding time to what you do, it's not really serving you well. You want to find a way to streamline it. And I know in sitting down with Christian at Modern Football, when we started talking about quarterback grading, I explained some of my pain points in doing that. And it was usually for me during spring ball and all the things that I wanted to do to make sure I was evaluating correctly. But it took me a lot of time. And now I'm looking at the ability to take a tablet and touch a few buttons and boom, we're on to the next play. I think that in and of itself is going to save a lot of time. But what's coming out of it in the reports, I think, that's where the magic is.
Right. Right. Exactly. So we've always, had the reports as far as, hey, so-and-so was 60% and 100 out of 150, but all right, was half of that check downs? Like, we don't know. And, so that's what's cool about all the analytic tools and what modern football is doing. You can actually dive deeper into what's going on the field, and then gives you the information you need, which is what everything's about, is getting that information and as fast as possible.
Yeah, I had a defensive coordinator I work with said, statistics are like bikinis. They're going to show you a lot, but it's not telling you the whole story, right? Like, there's still a lot more there you need to uncover. And as you said, like, I always started thinking about that the same way, that this guy who's competing for a job, yeah, he's coming out with a higher completion rate, but man, he's not driving the ball down the field or even taking those shots at all. I think all of this is, what am I going to do to teach with this? Because I am going to go to that. I'm not just going to say, well, he's the starter now, and why aren't you driving the ball down the field? What is it in your thought process? What is it in your development that I can help this particular player with too? It does allow you to, I think, tailor your plans for each guy to make sure that they're developing. Because, hey, that guy who we decide isn't the starter right now, a week down the road might be, with the way our game is.
No, absolutely. And no, that's a good point too, because in that data, we have a situation where in the last 2 years, if this was normal football, you get your players back. We have one quarterback that's average target was 5 yards less than the other 2 quarterbacks that have started games for us. And we're talking about a drop off from averaging 11 yards down the field of target, whatever that is, ATR, AT something, average target per throw, I think is ATPT. Average target per throws typically in us should be somewhere past 10 yards. For the love of God, be past 10 yards. And so one quarterback's at 5 in our system. And so when 2 other quarterbacks are doing that, and then you're at 5 running the same plays, and that's not just one sample size of a game, it's multiple games, and all of them had multiple games, that's player-based. It's not scheme-based. And so, like you said, that's a great tool to, show them the data and say, all right, how could we help this? What do we need to do? Can you fix this? Because this isn't working for us right here. So I never really thought of it that way, but it absolutely can be used to, coach a player.
Yeah. As you're looking then, the playbook's narrowing down. And I know philosophy wise, in fact, wrote an email and an article, and I'll put the link to the article in the description here. But the basis of the article was Hal talking about, offensive line coaches and picking your offensive line coaches. And one of the traits he wants to see is that you have the capacity for boredom. And I know that's a philosophy of, air raid guys in general. You say that, but I know you guys are good at knowing what you need to work and where the time needs to be spent. And it's not just blindly doing drills and, we're an air raid team, so we're going to, run settle noose, and we're going to run pat and go or whatever. Like, hey, we have a focus to things, and we know that as we've narrowed this down, these things need more attention. So as you're looking at that, as the refining goes, how does that affect practice plan and the way you think about practice? And again, you mentioned it's all going to come down to not the roster, but the execution.
Yeah. And you would think our drills or whatever can get redundant, and they probably do, but that's where coaching comes along and bringing energy and understanding. There's really, with our drills, there's a level of execution to them that takes a few weeks, and the players see the difference with route running and what we're asking them to do with speed cutting and catching with their hands, and they see it. And then it's like, all right, I have to do this stuff every day to maintain this level of execution. And so, going through that with practices, it's the same stuff, but we're trying to make it to where it's 100% on air. It's when things are in rhythm with what we do. It's like, so we're a rhythm offense with our feet. A lot of teams aren't that way, that, are air raid, whatnot. They're pop a shot, a footwork, one step for everything. It's not what I like, but there's national championship teams that have done it. So however way you like it, but we're rhythm based. And when you're in rhythm and you go 1, 2, 3, boom, it's just like watching a Bill Walsh team. It was the same thing to watch Joe Montana operate, 3, 5 and hitch, quick 5. And you knew that ball was coming out. Like, I even just saw a clip on Twitter, which is great, with all the football history accounts. They were playing the Giants, and 1, 2, 3 ran a dragon concept. Jerry Rice, boom, 40 yards to it right behind the flat defender. I mean, that's just beautiful to watch. So the whole point saying all this, to get to that level, man, you have to practice at that level to where, we're at practice and it's tap, tap, tap with the feet, shuffle, boom, back shoulder ball, 17 to 19 yards. Receiver goes up, catches with a twist, and we're going, God, that looked great. That's exactly what it's supposed to look like. And then the next 4 guys do it the exact same way. And then we're going, yeah, we're getting somewhere. Whereas maybe before that, you're coaching that's what you want. Quarterback throws it too soon, or he shuffles twice, or the receiver looks back for the ball as soon as he clears, the press man, or the quarterback throws it at 10 yards. Or, there's just so much details, painstaking attention to details that you got to get right at practice. And that's, even though it's the same stuff, there's a level of or standard that it's got to be met, or just that's not it. That's not what we're trying to do. And so you can see why we do so many few plays, because the standard of what we're trying to do is so high that when we execute, we're not, the only one that can stop us is ourselves, which can happen sometimes.
Yeah, you mentioned it, rhythm. I think every play has a timing and a rhythm, and it's the calibration of those things, especially when you're looking at the passing game, that need to come together to give you the execution you want. And I know I paid a ton of attention to timing, that snap to the throw, and understanding the time frame that certain throws within a progression need to be made in order for that to work the right way. In order for that, scout team's only going to show you so much. I mean, their scout team, for a reason, their timing and being able to close down your windows is going to be different. But if your timing isn't right, you have no chance, right? So if you are hitting, that route on the last step of your drop, we know this is going to be the route we throw. For us, we know, hey, this is thrown in 1.8 to 2.2 seconds. Anything beyond that is broken up or it's going the other way. And also, like, this route over here is thrown at a certain timing as well. And beyond that, it's going to break down. And obviously, at some point, you're moving out of the pocket because it's only going to hold up from, 2.6 to 3 if you're good at it. And then, if you get more than that, that's great. But the timing and rhythm of things are important. That's what I was excited to within this tool. I mean, I was constantly walking around with a stopwatch. I had a stopwatch at everything. And I could tell how good we were getting at certain things because of we were starting to hit it within that time frame. I was excited, as we were talking with Christian and that stopwatch, that timer was put in as part of the tool as well. I just think it's essential that you have to understand when do things come open in your offense. I mean, I've studied a little bit in the run game too, and there are certain things with the run game that have certain timings, but it's definitely not more clear than in the drop back passing game that things have to be calibrated.
Yeah, no, the timer thing's is essential because, I read this the other day and I kind of completely agree with it. They said sacks is really a quarterback stat, not an offensive line stat. I mean, there's merit for both, but, there's a trend with quarterbacks even right now in development that they are holding onto the ball, waiting for things to break down, scramble around and throw it. And they don't have, because that's what they think is success, they're not being asked to 1, 2, 3, ball has to get out or you're getting hit, because in their mind they can always escape. And I feel like that's not going to work in the NFL. It hasn't, never will. Now, I'm not saying that you can't make exciting plays, but even the most fastest, most elusive quarterback in the NFL, I would argue right now, is Lamar Jackson. He's developed and he knows how to do those things, but he also has that in his back pocket to where he can, boom, take off 40 yards. And I'm like, gosh, how are we going to stop him? Because he's developed as a lot of people said he'd never be a passer. He's one of the best passers in the league, but he was, he's been developed to see things fast, be in rhythm, get it out. And then, because the other way, you can't major in that at the highest level like you can at the college. And so, so getting back to the point is if you have that data and the quarterback's holding it on to the ball longer, that's an issue. That means he's not seeing it fast enough, especially if, let's say, this other quarterback has a whole, let's say one gets it out on average 2.9. I think 2.7 is really good if I remember right. I think some can even get to 2.5, but 2.9. And your other quarterback's 3.1. Okay, similar. But you're talking 2.9 to 3.9 to 4.1. This guy scrambling more. All right, look at average yards per target or average per throw, or rushing yards, and you're not seeing anything translate to where it could equal possible explosive, then, you got an issue with one quarterback holding on to the ball too long and try to address it.
So to wrap things up here, and, we talked about cutting it in half over the course of your first few weeks of training camp, which you'll be going into here soon.
Yes. We
didn't mention what is that number? Like when you talk to Noel's been on a number of times. Noel talks about, I think, the number 26. Phil Longo came up with a similar number when he was on here. And a lot of guys with that air raid influence seem to be, this is the sweet spot of what you carry into a game. What's that starting point though before? How much more than that are you looking at to narrow it down to this is what we're going to carry over, the course of the season or into a game?
We don't count screens. We don't count specialty plays, and we really don't count quick game. So you're looking at run game and looking at pass game. So in our playbook, let's say it's about 300 pages. You'll get through the first 297. That's where the run game is, and it's in the back 3 pages, and it's trap, zone, and draw. And there you go. That's all we need. That's all we've ever needed. We've led the league in rushing. We had our running back this past season, John Levitt, had the most rushing yards in a single game against DC. I think it was 180 yards, and we rushed for over 200 yards in that. Running 3 plays. Don't count speed option, which we'll run down in the zone. Don't count duo because that's just tags off zone, or calls, I should say. So yeah, it's in the back. It's 3 plays. And they've worked for 100 years and they'll work for the next 100 years. So we're at fault for always having too much drop back pass. If only we could be as disciplined with our run game. And again, I think it changes though because of personnel and everything we just discussed. So honestly, in a perfect world, I don't know, we have 3 runs, 7 passes, drop back passes, and it's 10 plays. We'll run 10 plays. Hal is outside zone, inside zone, and heck, when I was with him at Jackson State, we didn't even have draw in, but his last run, he had, he went back to stick draw. And so then you have 95, 92, 6, 91. So he has four plays and 2 runs. Oh, and if you catch him and you actually watch it, he'll only run the run play one way. Why are we running zone right or left and right? We just need to go right. They'll never mess it up. And now we get to rep it twice as much. I mean, there's genius in that. But, somewhere in a perfect world, not counting those other concepts, screens, quick game, specialty plays in the red zone, trick plays, we're talking about who you are. And a coach, I'm going to give a shout out to Frank Gantz Jr., unbelievable coach, special teams guy. But he said a term that I've always stuck with me. He goes, hey, what do you do when you get down and you're in 2-minute drill? You go back to basic training. What's our basic training? You know what it is, AJ. X and Z go, the 14-15, the choice, the streak, the switch. And, that's how many basic training plays we want to have leaving camp is somewhere around 10 between runs and passes.
Awesome. Well, as always, AJ, it's been great to talk to you. Learn a little bit more about what's going on here. Best of luck to you and the Brahmas here as you get into another season, the UFL. When's training camp from now? How long till you report?
We report February 27th. We'll have our first practice somewhere around March 5th or 6th, I would imagine. Got to go through an acclimation period. And then that first game, and the first one kicks off Friday, March 28th. And we're on Saturday on the 29th. Arlington, at Arlington. Don't have to travel because we all hub. So look forward to that. And yeah, we'll kick this thing off against. Yeah. We'll have fun with the season, and thank you for not leaving us for too long without football after the Super Bowl there. No doubt. We'll be on. That's going to do it for this best of episode of the Coaching Coordinator Podcast presented by Modern Football Technology. AJ's perspective is a strong reminder that effective offenses aren't built on how much you carry, they're built on fit, rhythm, and execution. Cutting the playbook, protecting timing, and setting clear standards are not shortcuts, they're how clarity shows up on game day. If this conversation got you thinking about how you evaluate your offense, develop quarterbacks, or use data more intentionally, the Coaching Coordinator AI Companion built around AJ Smith's episodes is available to support that work. It's trained exclusively on AJ's transcripted conversations and helps you apply his frameworks and language without stepping outside the boundaries of what he actually shared. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. One of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.